Hello, welcome and welcome back. If you don't know who I am, my name is Elisa and I create my dream wardrobe from scratch and I take you along for the ride. Also, I enable you to do the same because I sell my digital original sewing patterns on Etsy. I want to do something new today because I have been working on a sewing pattern for quite a long time and I don't know exactly what it is about it, but it's becoming a little bit of it's a situation. It's becoming my arch nemesis. I'm talking about the wrap dress. If you know, you know. She's there, she's on my computer waiting, but she's just not yet perfect, which, you know, means that I don't want to release her as she is right now. That's just what it is. It's the truth of the matter, but that doesn't hold us back from creating beautiful garments regardless. I recently came across this absolutely gorgeous printed linen. Before I show you, I have been looking at it multiple times over the last couple of weeks, and not only is there one version of it, they had like a range of beautiful prints. And what I did is I went to Instagram, showed you my 3 favorites, and we did a little bit of a poll. So the options were this fabric and this fabric. Those 2 were the 2 finalists. It seemed like the most popular one was the blue version, which I had to agree because that was the one that I thought I was going to buy when I went to the shop like 3 times. However, knowing my personal color season, I knew that that one was going to look much better on me than the blue. Warm, soft, orangey tones suit me very well. I can pull off blues, as you can see. The other colors are just much more suitable for my season. So we ended up with this one. Look at her. Look at how she compliments me. She's a sister from another mister. I've been waiting for her to come into my life and now she's finally here. I bought plenty of this fabric. This is 6 whole meters. I spent a lot of money on this, so it better be good in the end. The plan in terms of the dress that I want to make with this is this one. We're looking at the ultimate Y2K summer dress. If you're anywhere near my age, you know that this was the silhouette for dresses in the early to like mid 2000s. Neck halter, drop waist, tiered skirt, and you were that girl. And it's coming back, you know. I can feel it, I can see it, I can sense it. A lot of those Y2K silhouettes and quintessential like garments are coming back, and I never would have thought that I would be happy about this, but I'm kind of digging it right now. I don't exactly know why, but as you know, I recently, or like a couple months ago, released the Olympia dress, which has a drop waist, and I told you that I was gonna venture into the drop waist business a little bit more. So here we are. We're gonna have a neck halter dress with a drop waist and a tiered skirt, which is also something that I have been obsessed with ever since I made my gingham skirt a couple of weeks ago. So I'm kind of like bringing all of those things together and I'm making this gorgeous, what I believe will be a gorgeous dress. I haven't actually made the pattern for this yet, and I think it will be a mix of actual pattern pieces that I'm gonna draw up on my computer and just like a chart that explains the tiered skirt situation. That is the plan. So I'm gonna sit down now, pull together the pattern. I can do this in a couple hours, so let's go. So I think the process for the pattern is pretty simple. I'm going to copy and adapt the torso of my Olympia dress because I do already know that this is a very good fit for most people since it went through a pattern test. I'm then going to create the bust pieces also on my computer here, and because I think it would be a total waste of everybody's time to create a pattern per se for the tiers of the skirt, I'm rather going to create a diagram that anyone can use to apply the same principles to whatever fabric that they have, because printing out a bunch of pages that have nothing on them really and then putting them together like puzzle pieces just to receive a couple of rectangles, I think is a little bit of a waste of resources and time. So a diagram would work much better, I think. So really the pattern would consist of the torso and bust pieces all graded and ready for anyone to use, and then a diagram for anybody to just apply to their fabric. I think that makes sense. Since I am actually creating a digital pattern here, it is most likely that this will end up on my Etsy shop. So I'm gonna do all of those things right now. I think it's only gonna take me maybe an hour or so. Then I can print the pattern and use it to create my own dress. So So these are my pieces. We have front, back, and the bust piece. And I'm now going to cut this from white calico to test it. We've got ourselves a prototype. A few little changes I need to make, but overall looks good. Quite a low back situation, very Y2K. So I think I am happy with the top. I'm going to make a few adjustments on the digital pattern, and that's that. Then I just need to create the diagram for the skirt. Right, so this is the pattern piece, legend, placement, and skirt diagram for this Kylie dress. You can see all of the individual pieces for the bodice, which are all graded, and you can see how to cut all of the pieces, plus how to suss out the tiers on your actual fabric. And I will now show you how I cut my tiers from my fabric. So a quick guide on how to fold your fabric. I have 5 meters of this linen right here, and what I've done is I folded it widthwise. Right here, that's my fold. So I have a 1 meter 40 tall fold, and the rest of it I just folded along the selvage like this. So I have a 2 meter 50 times 1 meter 40 perimeter of fabric with 2 layers and 1 fold on one side. What I do now to cut my tiers is to fold that in half once again, just because this makes it a little bit easier for me to cut my tiers. And I place that on the ground. So I'm following the diagram, but to make it easier for myself, I've actually folded the 2.5 in half to only have to do 1 cut, to make it easier for myself to have something that is parallel for that last tier, which is the longest. Then I'm gonna open up that fold again to do the rest of my pattern placement. So the height of this is supposed to be 40. So what I do is I cut 42 to give myself some seam allowance. And to know that I'm parallel to my selvage, I'm gonna place a couple of pins just to make sure. So the next here is supposed to be 25 by 125. So from my fold here, I measure 125 plus 1 centimeter seam allowance is 126. So, and the height, again, supposed to be 25. I make it 27. Conveniently, there's a fold here for me that I can use. Going to give myself a couple notches immediately. So a notch at the fold line, because that is going to be my center front, and then I fold this in half, give myself another notch there, because those are my side seam placement notches. And then the last tier is supposed to be 20, so I make it 22 for seam allowance and 75 wide. Now the special thing with the last tier, or the highest tier, is that we need a side seam. So what I do is I cut open the fold. This is my side seam, and I need this for my pocket placement. Okay, so I fold it one more time, and I cut open one of the layers, not both, at the fold, because that's my center back. Just one of the layers. So this is the back side of that particular tier and the front side. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the skirt, and it is substantial. We have our first tier up here, which is cut in half because there's going to be a side seam for the pocket to go in. Then we have the second tier and the third tier, which is so large it doesn't have space in my room, so it's bunched up here. Then we have the bodice pieces. We have the bust neck halter piece, which I decided to cut the actual tie onto the bust piece. Then we have the facing for that. We have the bodice pieces, the facing for the bodice pieces, and the pocket. So let's assemble. I have decided to start out with my bust pieces, and they look like this. What we need to do is to overturn the actual shell with my facing pieces, and that is because they are a quick fix. They will be done relatively fast, and we need to assemble them before we then actually do the bodice. So what I do is I place my facing onto my shell, right sides touching, like this. And they literally look a little bit like bikini pieces. I then go ahead and pin the whole perimeter of the outline of each of these shapes. I now sew all around this outer perimeter up the necktie. I close the necktie up here, sew all the way back down on the other side, and then I can overturn this. So once we're at this step, what we can do is snip the seam allowance in a couple of places, specifically where we have curves, just so that we can make sure when we overturn everything, there's no tension. And then I'll grab a chopstick and use that to turn everything inside out, or outside out, better, from the end of the necktie. Then I just make sure my corners up here are turned as well. Now this is overturned. Before I take this to my iron, I'm gonna go and understitch this right away. So what I do is I fold the seam allowance into the facing, so facing the facing, and then I top stitch from the right side close to my actual seam. And I will only be able to do this for about this much on both sides. I won't be able to go much further than that, but that already helps keeping the facing on the inside. So these are my bust pieces all done. They look absolutely beautiful. They look like this on the inside. I have serged this curve to clean it up. And now, to be able to attach it to the bodice, we need to sew together the bodice. So let's put that to the side for now and fetch our bodice pieces. So like I mentioned, the bodice pieces are cut on the bias, and that is just so that they hug our midriff a little bit better than they would otherwise. So this is our front piece. These are our back pieces. So what I do is I place them right sides touching, and I pin and sew the side seams. So this is my sewn together bodice. Look at this handsome curve here. I am obsessed with it. And I have decided to press my seam allowance open like this, and I'm going to serge it now right away to prepare it for the facing at a later step. Now that we have the torso pieces sewn together, the first exciting thing happens, which is that we can join the bust pieces with the bodice. This is where we're at. What we need to do is to find our center notch right here. This is what we align the ends of our already overturned bust sides with. And then there's notches in the pattern that you will find that will align with each other. So this section we're going to pin flat. So I'm placing one bust piece right sides touching with the bodice. I find the notch and I place a pin there, and then I place another pin in between the two that also pins down the facing. Then I move to the other side, to this other end here, and this aligns with this little peak right here. So the end of the bust piece is right here where this peak hits. So this is where I pin that. I then also pin down this perimeter of the facing flat. And now we have our ease up here. This is basically the cup. Now what I like to do is I fold this. I pleat it down, and what I do is I basically just count my pleats. So I'm able to replicate the same thing on the other side. So we have 1, we have 2, we have 3, we have 4, 5 pleats. Let me check what that looks like from the other side. Here we have our cup up here. There we go. Now replicate this to the other side. Y2K is raising from its grave and more colorful than ever. This is a good time for you to try on your top. And for me, it's obviously a perfect fit since I made the pattern. So I can now move on to the skirt. Right, so the skirt is a bit of a beast. Here is the game plan. We're gonna start top to bottom. We have 3 tiers that we need to attach to each other. So there's gonna be quite a bit of gathering and basting going on. But the first tier needs to be prepared a little bit differently than the other 2. And that is because we do have pockets. So what I will do is I'll do the entirety of the first tier, insert my pockets, and then move on with attaching the second tier to the first tier and the third tier to the second tier with basting stitches and gathering them up. I think that's gonna be a bit of a mammoth task, not least because the last tier is 5 meters wide in total. And the other thing I wanted to mention is only the first tier has side seams. That's just because of the pockets. The other 2 tiers don't have side seams. That's just so that we save ourselves a little bit of time. Right, let's get started. All right, we know the drill. We have a front piece, 2 back pieces, and 2 pockets, which are 4 layers of fabric. We need to place the front right side up in front of us, and then the back right side down, like that. Then we grab our pockets. So what we need to do is to place 1 layer of pocket on 1 layer of skirt, basically 4 times. Always right sides touching, so the side seams are flush. Then we sew them down. We serge this raw edge. We fold them like this so we can see the beautiful print, and then we top stitch the seam allowance. And then we place the pocket and the skirt layers right sides touching once again. We make sure that the seam allowances are perfectly placed on top of one another. Then we pin around the pocket, and then we sew around the pocket. I'm gonna serge around the pocket eventually, but basically this completes the insertion of the pocket into the side seam. I'm gonna give this a good press, and I'm also gonna repeat this on the other side. So, this is what our first skirt tier looks like right now, and because I don't actually have that much time left of sewing today, I decided that my last task today would be to actually attach this first tier to my bodice. And the way I do this is by adding basting stitches all around the upper part of this first tier. I also use those to attach my pockets here so they don't roam freely. And the important thing is that you have a center front notch point. You obviously have your side seams, and those help you to orient yourself. And what we do is we have to place the bodice onto the tier, or the tier onto the bodice, right sides touching, and we align our center front notches with each other for starters. Then we move to the sides and we align those with each other. And the same thing applies to the back. The center back needs to be flush, 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 like this. We do the same thing to the other side, and you will find that the ease now has appeared. And this is what we need to gather down. And we can use our basting stitches to gather down each section to the width of the waist. So now that I have gathered down the skirt to the waist seam, I can sew it. It's the next day. Let's finish this babe up. So I now gave the second tier 2 basting stitches on the upper edge so I can gather it down and attach it to the first tier that is already on my bodice. And that's a principle that we follow. It's the exact same thing. I'm going to make sure that I start with the center front notch, then I pin down the side seam notches and my center back, and then I gather the distances between these notches to make sure everything is evenly distributed and there's not more gather on one spot than on the other spot. And then I do the same thing with the third tier, which is probably going to take a while because it is a whopping 5 meters. So let's do a bit of a time lapse and you'll see how it all comes together. Okay, I think the hardest part is done. Now I just need to gather everything down. I was way more gathering than I anticipated, but I think it's gonna be worth it. I'm gonna sew that last tier on now and then we can see the dress. So let's go. Alright, let's wrap this baby up. We have our facing cut, we have a zipper at hand. I have serged all of the inside seams of my dress so it looks beautiful and tidy. And now what we're gonna do is first of all place our zipper in the center back. I am just going to cross-reference the length of my facing with my zipper so I know exactly where to shorten it. I'm gonna place a little pin here. I'm gonna sew over the zipper a couple times and then cut it off. This is a plastic zipper. If you have a metal zipper, don't do that. I now pin my zipper right sides touching to one side of my back, making sure that the zipper head is just 1 centimeter below my neckline. This is the seam allowance. Now I'm basting in that first zipper band. I grab some tailor's chalk and I mark exactly where any perpendicular seams would be, so that's particularly the waist seam. Then I find the other side of the center back and pin that to the other side of my zipper. And that marking that I just made here allows me to really align my waist seam so that it's continuous from one side of the zipper to the other. Now I baste the other side. If you're happy with the fit, you can finalize sewing in your invisible zipper. So once the zipper is in, we can go ahead and close the rest of the center back by folding it right sides touching and pinning and sewing it shut. And we do want to make sure that our tier seams match up perfectly. So now we're gonna finish off the top of the dress by actually placing our facing that we have cut previously. I'm gonna grab this and put it right sides touching onto my underbust seam. I will align my center front notch with my center front and start pinning from here. The important points to match up are center front, side seams, and center back. You'll sandwich your zipper in between the facing and the shell and continue pinning it all the way down the center back. All right, and now I sew all the way from one end of my zipper up the center back, across the back neckline, across the front neckline, the other back neckline, and then down the other side of my back zipper. And that completes the facing process.
Open my eyes, I slept through the day. Slept through the day, feeling uneasy, I push it away. Push it away. Last night was fun, don't feel like today. Feel like today, let's do it again, let's go on a date. Cause tonight I'm gonna take you out and live the dream. wanna celebrate and have some fun tonight. I wanna show you all the lavish things in life. So raise a toast for all the good times that we'll have. It'll be like the movies, be like the movies. Rich people dreaming, rich people dreaming, rich people dreaming, rich people dreaming. Might be the gin that's gone to my head, gone to my head. Feeling so busy, don't want this to end, want this to end. Living the moment, I just wanna dance, just wanna dance. Pull up my card and swipe it again. Cause tonight I'm gonna take you out and live the dream that we've been talking about. So we can down and spend up all our emotions.
Alright my friends, this is the Kylie dress. What do you think? I hope you like it. I personally love it. I think it is such a beautiful, joyful summer dress, and I do think I have an occasion to wear it to the summer, which I am very excited about. I hope to read you in the comments. I hope you give the pattern a go. If you do, if you have any questions whatsoever, don't hesitate to reach out to me either via Etsy Messenger or here in the comments, and I'll try to respond as soon as I can. See you next time. Bye bye.
Rich people dreaming. I wanna celebrate and have some fun tonight. I wanna show you all the lavish things in life. So raise a toast for all the good times.